still there?
Yeah,
Okay, councillors, staff, members of the public and members of the media, thank you. Declare this meeting open at 5:30 and in doing so acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wadandi Noongar people, and I'll pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So councillors, we have an apology from Councillor Kozisek and we have some requests for councillors to participate by phone. Which we have to deal with here. So, councillors, first one we have the request from Councillor Steck to participate by phone there. Could we have somebody move that, please? Councillor Giles, Councillor Yep. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Steck, can you hear me? That's good. Councillor Steck, are you there?
yeah.
Cool. Thank you. You're now in the meeting, Councillor Steck. Next one, thank you, Liam. And this one is to request Councillor McCleary, Quain and Turner to participate by phone. Can we have somebody move that? Thank you. Councillor Giles, Councillor Plum, all those in favour? Thank you. Can you hear me, Councillors McCleary, Quain and Turner?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Steck need to vote on that one.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Steck, you needed to vote in approval for that. Yes. And once we get to those items, councillors, I'll call your names one by one when we're dealing with the voting matters. Deal with that one, thank you. Okay, there are no answers from myself. And we've dealt with the apology from Councillor Kozisek. Are there any declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. Confirmations of the previous minutes. Could we have somebody move that, please? Councillor Andrew, second Councillor Plum. All those in favour?
Yes.
Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Thank you, that's carried unanimously.
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor McCurry. Yeah. I will call your name while asking you to vote. Thanks, Councillor McCurry. We'll get there. There are no petitions, presentations or deputations. So, councillors, dealing with tonight's agenda, coming out for discussion will be 10.3.2, which requires an absolute majority, 10.3.3, 10.4.2, which requires an absolute majority, 10.5.1, and of course we'll deal with the confidential item. Is there any other items that would like to be discussed? We all good? Somebody happy to move that the remaining items are moved on block? Thank you, Councillor Yip. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Plum. All those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCurry?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. So, councillors, coming to 10.3.2, the budget review. The recommendation is there as follows. Could I have somebody move that? Thank you, Councillor Giles. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gassop. Is there likely to be any debate, councillors? I'll put that. All those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
And Councillor McCurry?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to 10.3.3, the Walga Energy Sustainability Project, and we have a recommendation there as follows, councillors. Could I have somebody move that recommendation? Councillor Smith, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Giles, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's all been said before, and I think we understand the issue. I think the council needs to start leading in this area, and I think it would be a popular issue with our ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Giles?
Similarly, Mr Mayor, I think it has all been said, but I also, as I mentioned last week, I'd like to see this as just a start, not the end of our sustainability action. So I think this is a good start, so I urge you all to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yip?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment, point 3, to this item, please.
Thank you. So point 3 is now on the screen, and for those who are attending by phone, point 3 is request the CEO present council with options for the city's contestable sites to provide their own renewable energy prior to the end of the 3-year electricity supply agreement. Is there a seconder to that? Thank you, Councillor Gassab. Councillor Yip?
No, I agree with Councillor Giles. This is just the first part of a process towards the city being more renewable and self-sufficient. Thank you.
Councillor Gassab?
Mr Mayor, also I'd like to move an amendment, I guess number 4.
I think, Councillor Gassab, we deal with this amendment first, and yep. Councillor Smith?
Can I just, contestable sites, what are they, which ones are they, please?
CEO? No? You got more than...
Through you, Mr Mayor, the sites are listed on page 25 under the background on the item. 12 sites in total. Do you want me to read them out, Mr Mayor?
I think that's fine, thanks, CEO.
Mr Mayor, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Can I please ask you or request you to read out the different options, please?
I can, so...
Because when the council is speaking, it's quite difficult to hear them.
Sure. So, Councillor Steck, at the moment, this is an amendment to add a point 3 to this strategy, or this recommendation, I should say. And that point 3 is, as I said, leaving point 1 and 2 as they are, but point 3 is request the CEO present council with options for the city's contestable sites to provide their own renewable energy prior to the end of the 3-year electricity supply agreement.
So the main motion is still option 1.
So it's not changing the executive recommendation as we have it, it's just adding a point 3 that the CEO effectively, in a nutshell, considers other options going forward.
Okay, well, I think you'll do that anyway, but okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Is there a speaker against this amendment? So just so we're all clear, councillors, if this amendment gets up, this point 3 then forms part of the executive recommendation as moved by Councillor Smith and Councillor Giles. So I'll put this amendment. Those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCleary?
No.
No. 1 against. So that motion is successful, and that point 3 now forms part of the executive recommendation in front of us. It becomes a sustained motion. Thank you, CEO. I think we now have another amendment. Councillor Gassab.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. May I just move the following amendment to request the CEO to collaborate with surrounding local governments to identify opportunities for investment in the production of renewable energy for the region.
So for those on the phone, again, I'll just read what this proposed additional point 4 is now. Request the CEO to collaborate with surrounding local governments to identify opportunities for investment in the production of renewable energy for the region. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Yip.
No.
Oh, that's okay. We've had Councillor Yip has seconded that. Councillor Gassab, your option to speak for that amendment.
Mr Mayor, very briefly, we are going to do a contract through Walga with Western Power. Now, there's been a lot of talk about supply and demand. In this case,
Mr Mayor,
Yes, yes, Councillor McGarry.
could Councillor Gassab, could he please speak up or put his mouth
Yep.
close?
Councillor Gassop, if you could speak into the microphone there, that would be good.
Maybe I won't speak then.
No, just please speak for Councillor Gassop, just maybe
Right.
just a touch closer to the microphone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can you hear me, Councillor Cleary?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. I'll speak briefly. I have had a pretty comprehensive meeting with the Director for Strategy, and we've come up with a suggestion to move this amendment. Now, we are endorsing a contract through Walgar negotiation with Western Power. The normal supply and demand curves don't apply in this case because Western Power is a actually regulated authority, so power is regulated in Western Australia. So what I'd like to suggest is we look at other opportunities on a regional level to see if we can be a bit more adventurous and see if we can become more self-sustaining and look at options. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gassop. Councillor Yip.
Thanks. Yes, definitely have to take a regional approach to everything we do on such a large scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yip. Is there a speaker against? Sorry, Councillor Stack. Councillor Smith has beaten you to it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not against this per se, but I wonder if this is the right forum. I would have thought this was probably something that you could bring up at the Southwest Zone rather than have the CEO to do all this work. So that's what I think, rather it should be brought up in that forum.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. There is a speaker for.
I'll speak for, so Councillor Stick can also speak. I agree, because when number 3 came up, I was thinking in the same lines of when number 4 come up, so I do agree that we have to work with our council around us and other different shires to actually collaboratively work out what's best for our community.
Speaker against, Councillor Steck, you foreshadowed you want to speak against.
Yes. A lot of renewable energy is going to come in this space in the next 5 years, and I think it is, unwise at this point to start to have a conversation with all the other councillors what they should be doing with their energy. And quite frankly, I think that conversation is into the future, possibly in 2 years' time or 3 years' time when our contract is starting to run out, because I'm assuming theirs will be a similar process.
Thank you.
I want to see what comes from Albury and the technology and government incentives in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Stack. Is there a further speaker for? Councillor Plum.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, my view would be that it would be a very good amendment. Certain infrastructure projects sort of requires a bit of a critical mass before they become feasible. So I think getting councils together to say, here's what our demand or our requirements might be, would further increase the likelihood of investment in renewables in the region, and large-scale projects would obviously then further have benefits to the community. Mr Mayor, can I ask a quick question while I'm here? Sure. The Executive. Just wondering if the Exec might be able to give us a bit of an idea of what the mechanism or process might look like, if that is a shared role or if that's perhaps likely to go to a consultant to work with all the councils, or I know it's obviously very early, we're just looking at amendment, but just roughly what that process might look like.
Mr Mayor, thank you. Look, I think in conversations with other local governments, it'd be where there's an agreement to just generally test the water and to seek what their involvement is, remembering that some of those other smaller councils haven't had the opportunity to participate in this program because they don't have the large contestable sites. However, most of our surrounding neighbours also have large tracts of open area where Bunbury doesn't have so much for potential future suppliers. I guess our thinking would be that we'd work together as other local governments for an expression of interest and see what came back from the market in the initial sense. Thank you. Is there a further speaker against? Oh,
Sorry, Councillor Plum. Finished? Yep. No. Councillor Gassop, would you like to close the debate?
Just again, briefly. Mr Mayor, I think we are in the future now. That's why we're doing this tonight. We have a regulated power market, so we need to look at options. Otherwise, if we're going to be beholden to one supplier, there's no efficiency in doing that, so we need to look at our own sustainability. Western Power does have started something that we could use as a model. They've got what they call standalone power systems that they're distributing around WA in regional areas. It's just a glimpse of what is occurring. So I really appreciate if there's any good support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gassop. I'll put the proposed amendment again. Sorry, before I do, just to clarify with those on the phone, they don't have the screen in front of them. The point 4 again is request the CEO to collaborate with surrounding local governments to identify opportunities for investment in the production of renewable energy for the region. I'll put that proposed amendment. Those in favour? Councillor Steck?
No.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
No.
Councillor McCurry?
No.
And those against here? Okay, that's 4 against. That amendment has 1. 4. That proposed amendment is successful. That now forms part of the executive recommendation.
Be taking these one by one?
We can do. Sure. Okay, this brings us back to the recommendation, which now has 4 points. We initially was moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Giles. Was there any speaker against this recommendation? Councillor Smith, anything to close?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's all been said. I think it is the way of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and as requested, we will take these one by one. So, executive recommendation number 1, all those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCurry?
Yes.
Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Number 2, all those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCleary?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously, thank you. Point 3, all those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCurry?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Point 4, all those in favour? Councillor Steck?
No.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
No.
Councillor McCurry?
No.
And those are not in favour here. 4. That is carried. Thank you, councillors. Well dealt with. We move to 10.4.2. 10.4.2 requires an absolute majority. Is there a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Plum. And a seconder? Councillor Gassop, thank you. Is there likely to be any debate, councillors? I'll put that. All in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quain?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCleary?
Yes.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.5.1 is the Greening Bunbury Plan. Could I have somebody move this executive recommendation? Councillor Smith, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Giles? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, this is an issue, and I have been accused of being a tree hugger, but I don't think that this is what this plan is about. We've been presented with some comprehensive information on how important it is to keep your city green, and I think a lot of other cities around the world are doing the same thing. Our climate is warming, and we need to look after our resources, and this is one way of doing it. I have been asked by a ratepayer that they're a bit concerned that if we adopt this, it's set in stone and we won't be able to change it. But I understand this plan is just for noting. In particular, this person is concerned about weeds and invasive species in the plan. But this is for noting. It's not completely adopted at this stage. Thank you very much.
You, Councillor Giles.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Again, as with the sustainable energy, I think this plan is a good one, and I think we've had some very in-depth information about the canopy cover and all those issues. I think it's a good start. Obviously, there's still a way to go, and as has been pointed out, we've got other issues to deal with, such as noxious weeds and so on, which are very important as well. But I think this is a good plan, and I think we should go with it.
Thank you. I believe there's been a foreshadowed amendment. Councillor Gassett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can you hear me, Councillor McCleary?
Yes, thank you.
So I move point 3 to that executive recommendation, and that is request the Chief Executive Officer pursue available avenues for funding opportunities for the Greening Bunbury Plan, as per item 5.5.3 in that plan, and to advocate to the Western Australian Government to immediately extend its urban canopy grants program to the regions from its current restricted area of Peel and Perth.
Thanks, Councillor Gassett. Take a seat. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Steele. Councillor Gassett.
Mr Mayor, I haven't had a mating speech yet. I'm just wondering if I could just do a quick instalment tonight.
You have 5 minutes, Councillor Gassett.
I won't use all that up. Look, through you, Mr Mayor, the report that has been presented is actually an excellent report. It really is a good report, and it's very, very well balanced, and I believe it's put together in-house. So the skills of the council staff is very good, and it's across the board, I have to say. I met some outside doing patching the roads today, and I said hello. They're really doing it with vigour. But I get back to the motion. The reason I've raised this, Mr Mayor, is, as I said, the report is well balanced, and it does offer benefits, including social, economic, health, visual and aesthetic outcomes. It also does highlight challenges, and I believe these need to be also mentioned, and that is conflict of trees with services and engineering, fire risk and impact on development of approvals like the BAL, fire hazards, diseases and pests, already mentioned, weeds and maintenance costs. Now, the report also recommends and identifies external funding opportunities, as in item 5.53. So because the report's really well balanced, it identifies the benefits and the challenges, and it also identifies opportunities. I've decided, and with the, discussions with the Director of Infrastructure, to put this motion to see if we can get more assistance as identified in the report.
You, Councillor Gassett. Councillor Steele, another from you. Is there a speaker against? For those on the phone, are you aware, did you hear the amendment as it is?
No.
Okay. So, point 3 is request the CEO pursue available avenues for funding opportunities for the Greening Bunbury Plan as per item 5.5.3 and to advocate to the WA Government to immediately extend its urban canopy grants program to the regions from its current restriction area of Perth and Peel. Is there a speaker?
The only problem I have with that is the question to the executive, and that is that I know that they are already under extreme pressure to water all of the parks and gardens that we have. How would that affect our quota, Gavin, or Mr. CEO?
Gavin, through the CEO, or Mr. CEO, would you like to answer that question?
Through to Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. Through Mr. CEO, I suppose at the moment we have the water reuse recovery scheme that's coming online with supplying water into our Hands Oval, Forest Park and Hay Park. That should be online by, I believe, October or towards the end of next year. Once that's online, that actually frees up about 50% of our groundwater allocation. So it actually allows us to be able to expand out our, undertake our greening strategy and expand out our parks if we wish to do so in the future.
Thanks, Mr. Harris. And Councillor Steck, if I could, this is requesting other funding opportunities as funding opportunities outside the city.
Yes, okay.
Was there a speaker against this amendment? If that's the case, I'll put the amendment as it reads. All those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quinn?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And part 3 becomes part of the executive recommendation, which was moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Giles. They've both spoken. Is there a speaker against? Thank you. I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor Plum.
Question quickly, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I would hate to add to Liam's workload tonight, so I won't move this amendment, but if I can just ask, it was raised during discussions that part of point 2, funding options, would be presenting the option to produce tree stock in-house. Will that process is probably underway or was as part of this budget preparation, is that correct?
CEO.
Through Mr. Mayor, Mr. Harris and his director, I think, are looking at a plan, how that might work, and that'll be presented back to executive directly next couple of months perhaps, and then form part of budget considerations after that. But we're happy to share that information with elected members once we have it available.
Thank you. We all good? Okay, we had the record.
Could you just read this out? Because
Yep, sure.
I think it's different than what's written here.
That's fine, Councillor Steck. So the executive recommendation at 10.5.1, the Greening Bunbury Plan, is that Council note the Greening Bunbury Plan as presented at the appendix. Note that funding option to achieve key targets will be considered as part of the 2022-23 budget deliberations. And then part 3, which I just read out and was passed, but I can read that again if you would like. But
Okay, thank you.
cool. I'll put that. Yeah, I didn't give that option, Councillor Smith. Absolutely. Anything further to add?
Thank you. Not much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd just like to say this is exactly the type of plan that a modern city should be pursuing. We all know that the planet is drying, and we know that despite the wet winter, the southwest rainfall is declining every year. So we have to consider what we do in the future. Personally, there's nothing worse on a blazing hot summer's day to go out and there's nowhere to put your car. It's just boiling hot when you get into it. And so the more trees and the more greening we've got, the better. It's also known fact that suburbs with tree canopies are worth more. So it's an economic matter as well. So for all those reasons, I urge councillors to support this, note this greening policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Councillor Quine?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
And Councillor McCleary.
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Councillors, we have an application for leave for Councillor McCleary. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Steele, Councillor Andrew, I'll put that. All those in favour? Councillor Steck,
Yes.
Councillor Quain,
Yes.
Councillor Turner,
Yes.
Councillor McCleary.
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We come to a confidential item. We have somebody move that we move behind closed doors. Councillor Andrew, thank you. Councillor Giles, I'll put that. All those in favour? Councillor Steck,
Yes.
Councillor Quain,
Yes.
Councillor Turner,
Yes.
and Councillor McCleary. Councillor McCleary?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Just resolved, moved by Councillor McCleary, seconded by Councillor Smith, and voted on unanimously. That Council commits in principle to provide the Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council, BHRC, with financial support in the form of a loan agreement for up to $7 million. The source of such funding, recovery and timing of repayments from BHRC is still yet to be determined. The split being up to $3 million to cap the existing waste disposal cell and up to $4 million for a new line cell, subject to receiving a report on future economic viability on the new line cell that supports the investment of these funds. Part 2 provides the above financial support on the condition that the Shire of Harvey contribute an equal amount of the funding shortfall for the capped and new line cell. And Part 3 requests the CEO, in conjunction with the Shire of Harvey and Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council, to seek other funding opportunities for waste management, as well as the $10 million grant funds from state government, being $6 million to match the federal government funding for our organic waste service facility at Stanley Road, and a further $4 million matching funds from the BHR member councils for the new line cell infrastructure. And that was passed unanimously. Councillors, I'll declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much for your patience, and thank you for those tuning in on the phone. Thank you very much.